and an abundance of grapes, berries, plums grew wild nearby. There was excellent hunting for deer, ducks, geese, gobbling wild turkeys. That fall, the pilgrims gave thanks to God, and all feasted on America's first Thanksgiving. Okay, now let's pause it. Okay, here's a poll. Okay. If we have comments on this, I hope we have comments on this. I don't know if we will, but if you have comments, put in the two books, one of the two books that you would want. So there will be a book about Abraham Lincoln. That's called Abraham Lincoln, the Friend of the People by Clara Ingram Judson. Or Rush Revere and the Brave Pilgrims. I think I would rather have Abraham Lincoln, but the other book is just sitting here collecting dust. So. Other ships arrived with more settlers. This time, there were no marriages and no children born. During this time, no one interfered with Plymouth's self-government. Settlers enjoyed the liberties of the Englishman. They had also had the religious freedom that they sought. Thought it was stern and narrow-minded form of worship. The leaders seemed to forget how the separatists had been persecuted, for in turn they frowned on all other religions. Okay, this is the main break right here. How many pages are left? 10 more pages left. Not really that much. I mean, not 10 more pages. Okay. This is page 26, and then 36 is when it ends. Okay, so this is our break here. I'm gonna need a drink of water. Ooh. I don't even think this is halfway in. It's pretty. I think it's less than halfway in. So here. Yeah, it's less than halfway in. It's like 6 pages. Started at 20, we're at 26, and then it'll be 36. Reading is hard work. Okay, let's get back to reading. Meanwhile, all the other settlements were being started around the coast of vast Massachusetts Bay. The most important thing was at Boston. Settled by the Puritans in 1630, about 100 settlers came first in the ship Arbella. The Puritans were English Protestants who wanted to purify the churches of priestly vestments and elaborate ceremonies. Their ideas on the church and government came from the teachings of the Bible and the practices of the early Christians. The leaders were a substantial man, and some of them were wealthy, and they carried a charter from King Charles I. It passed to them to set up their own government and pass laws, providing the laws did not conflict those in England. Among the settlers were men who had professions and trades, as well as a number of indentured servants. During the first 6 months of 1630, 15 ships, loaded with Puritan colonists, made their way across the Atlantic. Before the year was out, Boston had 1,000 inhabitants. From the first town was destined to prosper. The people were ambitious and hardworking, and most fortunate of all, the settlement was a splendid harbor. The soil of Massachusetts Bay was not as fertile as those of Chesapeake. Tobacco would grow, but its quality was poor. Since it would never bring easy fortunes to Virginia, Puritans had to find other ways to prosper. They learned about to make things needed instead of buying them abroad. Flax grew well. From that, they made thread on their spinning wheels and wove it into stout cloth called homespun. With their axes and hewed timbers, clapboards from their house, the land produced corn and other vegetables. With the few crude tools they had, they whittled and fashioned dozens of articles needed in their daily life. One important thing that they lacked was ironwares, nails, and many other articles of metal. They found earth rich in iron in the bottom of the ponds and bogs. The settlement was Saugus. The settlement of Saugus. The first iron works in America was established in 1644. Here men smelted ore and forged the iron into useful products. Gradually, the colony built up a trade with Europe, where the settlers would buy some manufactured goods. Timber grew in abundance in forests. With their built shipyards sprang up. Boston and coastal towns, the screech of saws, the rat-a-tat-tat of mallets, and scraping of adzes. The scraping of adzes. ADZES, was heard as fine, tall vessels took shape on the stocks, building ways. Ropes are needed to fit out of these sailing ships. The colonists planted hemp, which from ropes were spun. Some vessels ranged as far as Newfoundland and returning loaded with fish. Larger ships carried salt fish, lumber, barrel stapes, and furs, especially beaver skins, to Europe. Fish and wood products went to the West Indies in exchange for dyewood, sugar, fruit, and other cargo. Virginia traded tobacco from the States and used it for hogsheads, which was already shipped. Massachusetts Bay soon bred a race of hardy seafaring men. The settlers did not forget the importance of education. Unlike Virginia, where the plantations were far apart and most children were taught at home, Massachusetts lost no time at setting up schools. The first was established in Boston by 1635. By 1642, all towns in the colony were required to have them. And in 1636, Harvard College, first built in America, was founded. All would have been well, but for the growing of hostility of the Indians. When great and good Massasoit died in 1661, he was succeeded by his older son, who soon died. His second son, Philip, who his Indian leaders called Metacomet, became chief. Philip was a great leader, but a bitter and sullen Indian who hated the white men. His hatred grew as new settlements sprang up in the farther and farther west until they reached the fertile valley of Connecticut. Shh. I'm doing my podcast right now, buddy. Gosh. Jeez. I'm trying to do my podcast. Settlements sprang up farther and farther. His hatred grew as new settlements sprang up farther and farther west until they reached the fertile valley of Connecticut River. Philip saw in time that Indians would be driven from the great wilderness in which they lived, hunted and fished, and having persuaded other tribes to join in a powerful confederacy, Philip launched the Bloody War in 1675 in an effort to drive the white men out. All through the territory of Plymouth and Massachusetts Bay, the Indian warriors swooped upon settlements, burning houses and killing people. Two colonists struck back with an army commanded by Governor Joshua Winslow of Plymouth. The troops marched through the trackless swamp in a strong and hidden household of the Narragansetts. Narragansetts. Attacked and burned it and wiped out the whole tribe. Philip was still powerful, however, and Winslow, through the good military leader, did not know how to cope with the Indian warfare. At last, the daring, fearless Captain Benjamin of Church of Royal Island organized a band of rangers. He and his men were all crack shots and skilled in fighting in Indian fashion. They hunted down Philip in another dense swamp and shot him dead. With that, the Indians' power collapsed and King Philip's war ended. Okay, here's another break. Okay, let's begin again. But another serious trouble of another sort was in the making, when King Charles II and his successors began to assert power over the American colonies. Massachusetts bitterly resented it. Like Virginia, Massachusetts was indigenous over the Navigation Acts, passed by the English Parliament, the Acts, of course, and required the colonial exports to be carried through English ships. All imports had been produced in England or else to be produced in England or else, brought there first, and then had to be shipped to America in English vessels. Massachusetts colonists, like Virginians, knew how the products could be shipped cheaper in Dutch ships, and in Holland,